Yeah.
So, I mean, really, for the buck, you are a pretty good bang.
I think so.
Wow. Okay.
Well said, Matt.
Yeah. Maybe I can
Let's
charge
ask my husband.
you. Yeah, maybe, or not. Maybe that's not the right thing to say.
Welcome to Books in Hindsight, the only podcast where hindsight is always 2020. And we explore the great books, works, and ideas of the century. Now, here's your host, teacher, and author, Matthew Heines.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Books in Hindsight. We interview authors, and rarely we get a chance to interview the people that make authors what they are, and I'm talking about editors. And today we have an editor par excellence, and her name is Abby Lodmer. Abby, welcome to Books in Hindsight.
Thank you, Matt. I'm so happy to be here. What an honor, truly.
Well, it's really an honor to have you on here, Abby, because I interviewed Philip Nicozisis, and he did have Laptop Will Travel.
That's
and I
right.
think we have that book here. And
Love you, Phil.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but he said you just had glowing reviews of how you helped him through the process. He had done used other editors, but you actually really narrowed things down for him, and really were kind of key to his success on his book.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So, I'll take it.
Yeah. So he had nothing but great things to say. And I'll just give you a little backstory on Abby and I. We met about, I think, 6 months ago, and I was wearing this exact same t-shirt. And she said, oh, I edit books, and my husband is an author. And I said, well, I do Books in Hindsight. So we were going, yes, let's do something real soon. 6 months later, here we are.
Jewish Standard Time, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. That's real soon.
Yeah. But we're going to find out about Abby and why she's so busy, and what her editing process is, how to get a hold of her, and why you would probably want to choose Abby over other editors. So let's start the interview right now. Abby, let's start talking about how did you get interested in editing other people's stuff?
Wow, that's a really good question. I have always, first of all, I don't know about interested. I know about when you're born with gifts or you're raised to develop gifts, sometimes you just use them. So my mom is a PhD English professor in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles area, and she raised me that way. So whenever I would write essays for school, there would be my mother, my English teacher, professor mother, helping me. So I don't even necessarily know the rules of grammar. Yes, I do now, but I didn't necessarily know the rules. But as she coached me and helped me with my own writing, I acclimated and I developed that skill. I won't say gift. It was a skill. So, yeah, and then it's like someone who majored in film, which I also did in college, watching a movie. Sometimes I can't just watch a movie and get lost in it. I'm like, that cut sucked. That was non-diegetic sound going through there. It should have been diegetic sound. I can't just watch a movie. Sometimes I'm always editing in my head. That's how I am when I read a book or read an essay. My friends will send me one of their blogs and say, oh my gosh, read my new blog post. And I'm like, can I open it in Google Docs? Because I can't just sit there and read it. I'm going to have to edit it. So that's how I got into it. That's how I became interested in it, is that my mom helped me and now I'm helping others.
Wow.
Yeah.
Abby, as an author, I'm telling you right now, you're my antithesis. I would drive you crazy because I cut corners, I write how I want to write, and you're just going to like it, and that's how it is.
I'm not saying I don't.
Yeah. So when you're doing, when you're editing a book, let's just start off with the downside. Let's say somebody submits a book to you and you just go, you know what? I don't think this is going to sell anything. Do you ever have to be honest with people about that?
You know what? I never do, because some people submit the books and they just want to be a published author. They don't care if it sells or not. I have a lot of trust fund clients, let's just say it like it is, who really don't care if their books sell. They just want it published to give to their family for the holidays.
Wow.
So no, I mean, in my experience, I've never ever had to do that, because everyone comes to me with different agendas and different goals that they have for their books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, trust fund clients.
Some.
Wow, that's
in LA, not here, online. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how many trust fund people there are up here, because the Microsoft kids aren't old enough yet, probably. So.
Exactly. Wait a generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's interesting. So, you're very open. Are you? How do I want to say? Do you get books that are not complete, and you say, look, you need to finish this and resubmit it?
Really, yes, I do get books that are not complete, and then I work with my clients to edit the parts that they did complete. And then once they see that there's promise, there's light at the end of the tunnel, it inspires them and it gives them confidence to keep writing. So yes, I'm like, okay, let's edit the part that you have written, because that's complete. Let's edit what is complete.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of your books. We talked about Phil's book, so let's take a look at that.
Yeah.
So this is, I interviewed Phil last summer. Have Laptop Will Travel was his book. And what was the experience like? I mean, Nick's just a really fun guy to interview and work with, but what was it like working with him as an author?
Oh my gosh. Well, Phil is a very dynamic person, and as the title shows, he traveled the world with his laptop and wrote about his world adventures, interspersed it with quotes and philosophy, because his name is Phil. Brilliant. Work with what you got. And it was really, really fun working with him, because what I do with all my clients, which is what I did with him, is that I really got to know his voice, like you were talking about earlier, your voice. I get to know his voice, and I make sure that I keep his voice, but that the writing is smooth and readable for everyone. So I don't ever want to suppress or squash someone's voice, but I want it to be grammatically correct and readable. So what was fun about Phil is that he has a very unique, dynamic way about him, and trying to keep his style flowing throughout the book was a good challenge for me.
Yeah.
It was really cool. It was really fun working with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was one thing that I really regretted about the interview was I never got to use the phrase, well, it's all Greek to me. I can't
Philip
believe
Nicosis. He is Greek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get away without saying that. So
That's funny.
all right, well, that's great. So let's just go through, I guess we're going to just talk about your resume or your litany of projects here. So let's go to, we're going to have an author on in a couple weeks. So let's look at her book. Do you have that?
Is it Joelle Cantor?
I think so.
Yes. My Wake Up Fall by Joelle Cantor. How landing on my face taught me how to stand on my feet. If this title does not captivate you and make you want to read this book, I don't know what will.
Yeah. And I've talked to Joelle a little bit, and so the book is really about life experiences and her wake up fall.
Yes.
So
it's about her 4th brain injury, believe it or not, 3rd or 4th. She had a few freak things happen to her in her life, and it compounded with the last fall that she got that happened to her while she was jogging, and she really tailspinned after that one for 3 years. Really didn't want to live, and it's a very inspiring and interesting story about her journey back to the life of the living, where her brain injury finally healed, or maybe it was the medication. You'll have to read the book to know. But healing takes time, and it's really amazing to know what the fortitude that people have despite their challenges and really just not wanting to live anymore because it's so painful. So it's a very inspiring book. Her fortitude to survive is really inspiring.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to interview her. And it's just like our thing. It's like we were going to do this 6 months ago. Or actually, we were going to do it at the beginning of summer and never got around to it. So let's see another project. What's this?
Okay, this is a book by Jill Ginsburg, which I had the pleasure of I'm really not the official editor per se, but I did have the joy of helping her with her beginning ideas and outlines, and just reading a bunch of excerpts throughout the process and helping her edit them, which I have done with many of my friends' books. I just happen to have hers here. So I'm not necessarily the editor of the entire book because she worked with a company and chose to go that route, though I'm very happy to report that I did have a say in her process, and it was very interesting. She's funny. This is a funny book, Self-Made Wellionaire. Like, you gotta keep yourself healthy. Being a wellionaire is more important than being a billionaire. Read the book.
And you can take that to the bank.
Right.
Well, okay, let's show us something else. Just
something else. This is my dear friend Amy's book, The Power of Green, The Ripple Effect of Every Dollar You Spend. I am so passionate about this book because I share her values in this. I'm all about the power of green and using your green to vote for green. A green lifestyle, a green, healthy, vegan, happy, sustainable, eco-conscious lifestyle. And that is what this book is about. She has amazing ideas, tips, really inspiring stories about people who've used their green to help the world function better and help, the green get where it needs to go to make everything flow, rhyme. And she's so inspiring. So she also worked with a publishing company. And again, when you asked what makes my editing style different from just a very big publishing company's editors that they have on staff, is that I get to know my clients, I get to know their voice, I get my head into their head, and I edit based on how they would write it and what they would say, and I really take a deep interest in my clients and their message and their voice. So that's what I did with Amy, and she was really pleased with my editing style over the company's editing style. I shouldn't say that out loud because the company's probably on here. No, it's not. You'll never know. But yeah, so it was a joy to work on this book. I learned so much. Mm-hmm. She's an edutainer.
Yeah. What is an edutainer?
Like us, babe.
Oh, okay.
We're entertaining and educational at the same time.
I did not know that.
We're edutainers.
Yeah. People might sue me for false advertising if I say it was entertaining for any reason. All right.
You're edutaining.
So show us something else. Okay. Tell us something interesting. I think we've got one more, and then let's do this one. Let's do Matt's last.
This is the Joy for the Love of Joy, a 30-day adventure of creating joy in your life. Robert Max Schoenfeld wrote this book because you deserve more joy, more love, more health, more abundance, and more life. And this was an interesting project. I, again, got into his head and his voice and had many suggestions, and he wanted to keep the book to a certain lower page count, but I did get a lot of my suggestions in, like, hey, I think this quote would go really well with your philosophy in this chapter. So I encouraged him to add quotes, and that really punched up the book. I also encouraged him to add more metaphors and analogies, not just platitudes. So that's what I do with a lot of books that are kind of about truth and a theory, like adding more joy or voting green or traveling the world and being interested in culture. Like, don't just say platitudes like Columbia was great. It's like, do some kind of metaphor or analogy and tell me why it was so great. Don't just tell me this is an exercise to do to get more joy. Do some kind of metaphor, like telling me about joy. So we really have to bring books to life, especially if they're, informational or more journal oriented. People don't want to read a diary. They want it to come to life. So that was a challenge with this book, is encouraging him to put more interestingness into it, not just write platitudes. But they're all great books, and I'm really proud to have worked on all of them. And some of them that I've worked on are digital, and I don't have the hard copies because they're ebooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe
There
that's
you go. That's it.
All right, well, Abby, let's go on to this is going to be a little bit more maybe difficult questions to answer, but you also edit for your husband, Matt.
Yes,
So,
I do.
first of all, because you're talking about, you have to give like advice, and you're giving advice about style to your authors. So how does it work when you're editing your own husband's book?
That is such a really great question, Matt. Being married yourself and knowing about the dynamics of relationships, it's a really profound question. This is probably the hardest editing job I've ever had, and it's the smallest book.
Yeah.
Because when I give my own husband expert suggestions, he takes it personally and looks at them as criticisms instead of constructive criticisms from a professional editor. So it's like, oh, that's my wife criticizing my writing. No, that's your editor constructively helping you to make it flow better. So yeah, that's always a challenge. Really, yeah.
This is really, I mean, this is very colorful, and this is a children's book.
Well, it's for children or adults.
Really?
It's just an illustrated storybook, but yeah, children do love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really seems like, I mean, it's so colorful, and it really seems like it would be very popular with kids. So
Thank you.
that's great. Did you, so you edited this, and then you edit something and then it goes to the publisher? Like
Sometimes the different clients, there are different processes, but yes, you can hire me to edit in any step of the process.
Okay.
Yeah, whether it's before you submit it to a publisher or after you submit it because you don't want to pay the publishing company for their editors and you want a more one-on-one intimate editing experience, that's me. I'm the more one-on-one intimate editing experience. Yeah, so it's different with every project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you touched on one thing that I'd really like to get into in a little bit more detail. So I've interviewed Julie Broad of Book Launchers. So she has an entire company.
Wow.
And what they do is they're down in California, Los Angeles. Canadian. She's Canadian, by the way. So you got to keep an eye on her. But anyway, she's a very nice lady. And we've had a couple of her employees, whatever, come on and talk about their editing process and how they walk people through the whole thing from actually initially writing and all the way through. What is your experience? And you've talked about you're more personal, you get to know your authors, but what more or what else do you offer to an author when you've got the thing published or you've got the thing ready to publish? Are you going to give advice on what route to take?
Absolutely. I absolutely do that. I can help them with every step of the process. I have helped them outline, brainstorm. I've encouraged them, because I'm also a life coach, so I bring that into my process. I've encouraged them to, dig deep, think about the subject line for each chapter and the content that goes into it. So the pertinent questions that are asked are the most important part to get that ball rolling. So I've helped with that beginning process, like Julie's company does, all the way through to the end after the publishing company looked at it and the author is still, because the publishing company will give the book back and say, you need to approve this. And they'll say, I don't approve it. I don't like your editor's style. And they'll give it back to me. I'll sprinkle my editing fairy dust on it. And then they'll resubmit it the way that they like it with the Abby editing in it. And now I totally forgot the initial question.
Well, the initial question was right before publishing, are you going to give an author, well, should you self-publish? Do you have connections with a publishing house?
Absolutely. I don't have, I wouldn't say connections, but I have recommendations about publishing houses. Phil went with one of my recommendations. Joelle went with Hay House, an extension of Hay House, which any author can pay to be published. It's not Hay House, but it's, what is it? It's something Banyan Tree Books or Balboa. I knew it was a B. Balboa Press, which is an extension of Hay House. And yeah, a lot of people do self-publish. Matt went with a publishing company. He self-published it first though. But yeah, I definitely will ask the pertinent questions like, what's your goal? How wide is your reach? How much money do you have to spend? Do you have enough money to hire a publishing house? Because a lot of them are really expensive. And a lot of times I've seen with these publishing companies that they don't, it's the money that you spend hiring them as an official publishing house, it doesn't really work out. It doesn't, Bailey loves Uncle Matt. Bailey loves guy energy. She loves the men. She loves the men and the male dogs. But yeah, it's the money that you spend with a publishing company, they don't always market the way that they say they're going to on their website. So you still have to be the hustler. You still have to be the one knocking on the small bookshop doors and sending out blogs and sending out emails on your email list all the time and bringing them in your trunk wherever you go, meeting someone in the line at the market and selling them a book if you can see their face if they're not wearing a mask. Oh, that's the next interview.
Okay, yes it is. So, okay, you've touched on quite a few things here that we need to jump back to.
Yeah.
But, and we don't have to talk about exact figures, but I mean, like you said, like in the company we talked about, from the initial inception of the book all the way to the publishing, that can get pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And depending on, I'm sure they offer different packages. How are you compared to?
I can be pretty pricey. I charge hourly. I don't have packages because it's my time and it's my hourly wage. Yeah, I just charge hourly and I keep track of my hours and I'm very honest. I don't want that karma of like inflating hours. So people who hire me just have to trust me that that's how many hours I've spent on the book. And I keep track of my hours. I keep a log and I send them invoices at the end of the month. So I'm pretty pricey, though what my clients have told me and what I found through the publishing companies, they do have packages, but there's always more that they offer. And they say, well, now we've done the basic that you paid for in the package, but don't you want the expert editor to go through it again with the fine-tooth comb and go through it for story editing? Because it's like different prices. Like there's grammatical editing, there's story editing, there's content editing. There's so many different, packages and routes you can go with editing. I do it all. I'm like, this part doesn't make sense here. We have to put it in a different chapter. We need to cut this. It doesn't make sense in the flow of the story. And I'm also editing grammar and I'm also editing it to keep their voice in it, but make it more readable. So I'm doing everything at once. It's not just a specialty editor that you pay for different packages. I'm the whole package.
So what we're talking about then is we're talking about kind of the value of what you're doing compared to other companies. So if I had a 300-page book and needed some editing, whatever, maybe some grammatical stuff, about how many hours, and you don't have to give me a dollar figure, but for a 300-page book that needs some editing, how many hours would that be?
Really good question. Every writer is different. Every writer I edited a book for a native Indian speaker who was only in this country for 10 years. Her writing was very foreign, and that took thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours.
Wow. Because
her writing was so, I literally had to rewrite the entire book. So it just depends on your level of writing skill.
Yeah.
If you are a second language learner and you're submitting your book to me to edit, it's going to take a lot longer and be a lot more costly.
Okay.
If you're a native English speaker and you actually passed high school English, then you might have a less expensive editing job on your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not necessarily.
Right. That's true.
Depending on the high school you went to.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have an idea of the cost of the book, what do you say the turnaround is? I mean, if you're going to make the investment, it's an investment. So is there a return on these people's investment from what you've seen?
That's another great question. Yes, there is, especially depending on the publishing company that you use. I'm not a publisher. So I believe from what I know of these authors right here, Well, first of all, my authors whose books I've edited that are ebooks have definitely seen a return on their investment, 100% across the board, because they've gotten them up on certain sites and they just constantly make money on it because they're not putting money forward to print a hard copy. So all of my authors that are ebooks definitely make an ROI. My hard copy books, it's questionable. It runs the gamut. Phil, I believe, I hope, has made a major return on investment. His book is an international bestseller because he has hustled, and the company that he used, which was Bestseller Publishing, really did a great job on marketing for them and for him. He also is already a public figure. He's kind of a vegebrity is how you say it. So he's already kind of a celebrity around the world for traveling the world and doing lectures about veganism and health and sustainability. So he already has an audience, and I believe that's how his book showed a return on investment. Everybody else who isn't already a household name in some cultures and subcultures needs to really push and promote themselves and find outlets and get them. So I don't really like to support certain companies out there who are big booksellers. So, but you got to get yourself on these sites and make sure you have the right hashtags so they're showing up in searches. You have to figure that out or get with a publishing company who knows about that.
Yeah. And that seems to be the biggest problem. So getting yourself known and recognized, if I'm an author, how do I get a hold of you? How do I employ you?
Yeah. So the editing is a side hustle that I do. I have a teaching credential, so I'm a teacher and an editor, and my website, which has nothing to do with editing or teaching, is abbylodmer.com. ABBYLODMER.com. You can find me on many social media platforms. I'm very accessible. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. But the best bet is just go to my website and contact me and I'll get your email. And it has nothing to do with editing. It has everything to do with health and comedy, because that's my other identity.
Okay. So what kind of books would you be looking for that you would... Are there books you would turn away? Let's say that first.
Oh, wow. I've never turned a book away.
Okay.
I never have. I don't know if there is one. Because if anything, even if it's a topic I don't like or jive with, I could probably make it better. And, So, no, I've never turned a book away. Okay,
so I contact you, and do I need to have my manuscript ready to go,
Not at all. Okay. Part of how I make my living is that I'm a tutor. I'm a private teacher, and every day of my life I help kids write honors English 5-paragraph essays from the start, from the brainstorming, outlining, finding quotes, commenting on the quotes, etc., to the final A paper. That's right, A paper. So yeah, you don't have to have your manuscript started. I can just coach you through the entire process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just walk us through then. So you submit the book, and you are going to give, depending on how well it's written, whatever, you're going to give some feedback. Are you going to, there's all kinds of things that come with editing a book. Grammar, there's style, there's spelling, and on and on. So in your editing process, are you just reading the whole thing, or are you just editing for one thing at a time?
I'm editing for everything at a time.
Okay.
I'm editing as I go. So while I'm reading it, I'm using Red in a Google Doc, or whatever. It doesn't have to be Google, but in some kind of shared doc, so that my client can log in and see what I'm doing in my progress. I'm editing and I'm writing notes on the side margins about why I chose that, or sometimes it's blatantly obvious. I just edit, and if it's not flowing, because I have really good memory skills, memory like an elephant, and I remember the story as I'm editing, if something isn't flowing with the flow of the story, I will write a side note and say we should put this in a different paragraph, or it makes no sense here, or I'll highlight it in yellow and say we need to revisit this paragraph when we talk on the phone. Because I'm in touch with my clients. So we're talking on the phone, we're checking in on the Google Doc, we meet in person if we're in the same state and in the same town. And I just do everything the whole time. Grammar, spelling, punctuation, storyline.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really for the buck, you are a pretty good bang.
I think so.
Wow. Okay.
Well said, Matt.
Well, maybe I can
You'll have
charge
to ask my husband.
Well, yeah, maybe, or not. Maybe that's not the right thing to say. So, anyway, maybe we'll edit that out or something. So. All right.
We like to have fun.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is very interesting. So, are you working on any projects right now? Hey, everybody.
Yes,
if you're digging these Books in Hindsight designs by Matthew Heines, go to booksinhindsight.com, where we've got the latest and greatest on books and authors. As well, we also have books by Matthew Heines, and don't forget his funny designs. Well, let's get back to the podcast and Abby Lodmer.
The editing project I'm working on is for my friend and amazing writer, Casey Jahn, Jahn, and I believe her website is caseyjahn.com, and I'm helping her with all of her short stories, blog post entries, and her books that are coming out soon. So she's actually writing them like chapter by chapter that she's also using as her blog posts, and she's also using to enter contests, which is another thing I encourage my authors to do. Take your chapters of your book and enter writing contests, and many of them have won money. See, that's another way to make money off your writing. You don't have to submit your whole book for a publishing contest. You could take a chapter or a 500-word part and you submit it and you win contests. So right now I'm helping Casey Jahn with her projects. Oh, I want you as my consultant for my editing company.
I'll anything you want. We're going to have to talk about this.
Who thinks of hindsight? I mean, that is, you're a visionary.
Well, actually, you want to know the truth? My journalism teacher in high school, he saw how I wrote, and so he said, I'm going to give you, and this is I was a sophomore. He said, because he was my teacher and as a freshman for English, and he said, you're going to have two columns, and one of them is going to be hindsight, and then the other one is going to be something else, right? And then I don't care what you write, just give me two stories for every paper.
Oh my God.
And so I just wrote the most bizarre things about seagulls attacking people, and the teachers were communist infiltrators, and I was allowed to get away with everything just because of that.
Back before the communists really fully infiltrated.
Yeah, okay.
When it was only half infiltrated back then.
Yeah.
Right.
But thanks for noticing. But I may have come to that eventually, but no, that was Rick Robbins of Squim High School.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I'm glad he saw your gifts, because you really are gifted and you are a visionary.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. So yeah, no, don't.
I'm honored. I'm very honored.
Anyway.
It is an honor.
Okay. Well, the honor's on this side. So let's get into another part of the writing process, and that is, you touched on this a little bit, but you write your book, and then with a publishing company, that you're out the door. I mean, they fulfilled your contract, and that's it. Where is Abby Lodmer to support me, the author?
Abby Lodmer has quite a following herself on Instagram, Facebook, and in her newsletters. Abby Lodmer is always championing her authors, and I really mean it. I mean, I'm very proud of the work that we do together, my clients and myself, and I always post about them. In fact, you've inspired me. I'm gonna post a post today on Instagram and Facebook about my authors.
All right.
I'm always doing posts. I'm always saying, buy the second edition, buy this book. I'm so inspired by this chapter. Yeah, I'm always sharing my clients' books.
Are you looking for authors right now? Are you?
Whoa, I wouldn't say I'm ever looking. I would say I'm I'm
available?
very busy daily, editing for students, which are just shorter tasks. And I do the editing on the side. I literally only take a client at a time. So I'm never looking. They just come to me because somebody will recommend their editor, and then I'll get the call. So I'm never looking. But you know what? I'm available at some points. I'm sometimes available. Never looking. It just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about regional availability. You live in the Northwest, but Philip was in Florida, and that didn't seem to be a problem.
No, because we talked on the phone, we did FaceTime calls, and he was on my shared Google Doc. So when I did, a chunk of time, I'd put in like 3 hours, let's say one day editing, he could see what I did, and then he'd call me and be like, great job, I just don't understand why you changed this, and we would just touch base every other day, or however often he wanted to. He is a go-getter. So we definitely were very closely in touch during his project. Yeah, it was no big deal.
Okay, so where are you located? You don't have to give us your address, but you are located?
In the Seattle region. It's close to Seattle, Washington State.
And do you get a lot of Northwest authors? Do you prefer them, or do you try to shy away from them?
No. I do happen to get a lot of Northwest authors because actually 4 of these books are Northwest authors. Only 2 of them, well, these are the hard copies, but I have a client in London who published a book. He lives in London, so that was an interesting situation to juggle. When he wanted to talk to me about edits that I made, we'd have to really figure out timing. I have a client in Israel who published a book. So yeah, it really doesn't matter. We just have to, because they can see the Google Doc. They can see my work and what I've done, and they're usually happy with it. If they have a question, they can call me, or we can FaceTime or Zoom, and that happens. But no, I do have quite a few Northwest authors because people do like to meet in person.
Yeah.
The people who like to meet in person, I'm available in the Northwest. And if you've got the funds and you're in somewhere else in the world and you want to bring me there, we can do a really intensive week-long let's punch out the book writing session. And I've done that before too. Someone has flown me to a different state for 2 weeks and had me there to write her book for 2 weeks.
Wow.
That was a pricey one for her. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's really interesting. And, from somebody who does the editing process himself, I just listen to you going, oh boy, I wish I had saved myself the time. And I just as an author to people who have not written a book yet, by the time you finish writing that book, forget about editing. Editing is going to take whatever you had. Writing is going to be very difficult. But when you finish editing it, you're at the end of your rope, and you really need that stamina. And I was talking to your husband about it. By the time you finish writing the book, you don't want anything to do with anything to do with that book. So if you could have somebody like Abby share the load with you, then you have the energy to go out and market it. So you will help with the initial writing. You will give advice for changing style and stuff like that. And then you will help with the final product and the marketing, right?
I'll help as much as I can. I wish I had a bigger, wider reach.
Right.
But usually publishing companies have marketing staff.
Right.
They have a marketing team, and they do that. Though I'm always promoting my authors, my clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, from cradle to grave, I shouldn't say grave, but from cradle to million bestseller.
Bookshelf, right.
Well, million bestseller.
Right. I love it. Yes.
You're going to walk with your author the whole way.
Absolutely. I'm honored to do that. I am so happy that they even want to include me in that process.
Oh.
And I have authors who hire me again for the second editions. They want to revamp something and they want to add something into their book, and I help them edit that part too. It's a joy.
Okay.
It's a joy.
Well, let's talk about something very quickly, and we're kind of running out of time here, but What's the most difficult project? And you don't have to say the name, but what was the most difficult project you had, and what was so difficult about it?
Oh my gosh. I had a project somewhat recently that was a 19-year-old boy's project who wrote a sci-fi book, because that's what he was focused on, and he was a video game player and everything. And it was actually an amazing story, though it was not well written at all. And that was one of them. He wasn't a second language learner, but he just didn't have the innate writing skills. And I had to completely rewrite the book. And it wasn't just some journal entry book that I was spicing up. It was a very dynamic story with twists and turns and secret doors and raids, and it was like I was in a video game, and it was very dynamic. So that really took a lot of my brain space, because not only did I have to rewrite it grammatically, but the story wasn't quite flowing, though I know what he was trying to communicate. So I had to really think hard to rewrite the entire story as I rewrote the grammar, as I corrected the grammar. Every other story I've ever worked on, or autobiography that I've ever worked on, has been just the story. The people are already clear. I had a brain injury, this is what happened. I traveled the world for a year, this is what happened. So it's not like I have to say, you need to rewrite this entire storyline. It's not working. With that one, it took a lot of brain space, it was pretty challenging.
A lot of aspirin.
Yeah. Well, if I ever took aspirin, I'd say a lot of celery juice.
Okay.
A lot of lemon balm tea.
Yes, I have to mention here that we're talking to a hardcore, staunch vegan. So.
Well, more like a vegan. Honey is really nourishing.
Oh, okay.
Wild foraged honey when the bees leave their hives. Sustainable honey.
Okay. Yeah. And that kind of works because we're creating a buzz around your editing. So,
Told you this man's a visionary.
No.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So I had one more question that I wanted to ask you. Yeah, where do you want to go with this? Do you want to eventually develop this into a full-time business, where you're just working with books, and have the Abby Lodmer company? I just thought of something else that I wanted to ask you. But do you want to get a company going with this, or where do you want to go?
I think it's great the way it's been for the past 25 years since I've been editing people's books and manuscripts and projects. The universe somehow brings these projects into my life, and I've enjoyed my clients so much, and I love the relationship. That's the joy, is in the journey. If it was a company, I think my brain would explode, because I don't want to be doing the same thing all the time. It's not something that I want to do all the time. It's something that I want to be connected with the person. It's very relationship and project based, and my goal with every project I do, whether it's the health coaching, the comedy online shows that I do, or the book editing, my goal with everything I do is to help people bring out their purpose and bring out their message and their gifts. I want to just help people, live more happily and healthfully. So if somebody bringing their story out is going to bring them joy, I want to help with that process. So it's really about joy and manifesting someone's dreams and helping them bring their project to fruition. For me, it's not that I want to spend my whole life doing that. I want to bring my projects and my visions to fruition, which are more editing of media, not written word.
Wow, how interesting is that?
Yeah.
All right, so I have a couple more things. The next one I want to ask you is, you do a lot of editing. If I have you edit my book, can I put your name as the editor?
You can. I've also been a ghost editor and a ghost writer for many, many books. One of these, she didn't put my name down as the editor, but she thanked me in the acknowledgments and said, thank you for your insight and input. This book wouldn't have been possible without you. But I wasn't the official editor. She went with a publishing company and used their editors. But you don't ever have to give me acknowledgement. A lot of people don't.
Well, I would think that it would look good on a book to have Abby Lodmer's name on it as the editor.
Well, I can't deny that. I think so too.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
like
even
it when
better
I
to have
see
your
it.
picture on it. So, anyway.
Think about it. I could send you a thumbnail.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that we're going to tie this off. I want to just let people know that Abby, I really would like as an editor, this is a Books in Hindsight broadcast where we help authors.
Yeah. I love it.
And also readers as well, but we really are trying to help authors to get through the process and compare stories and give you advice, etc. So having Abby on here can not really hurt anybody. So in the future,
Here we are.
we're going to have Matt, her husband, come on and talk about his book. But I'd also like to have Abby come back from time to time and just, we'll have questions about the editing process. And I'd like to see Abby on the show a little bit more often. And if you'd like to do that, then just leave a comment in the suggestion. But don't say you want to get rid of me completely. Just watch Abby.
Abby and Bailey.
So, yeah.
Just Abby and Bailey.
Yeah.
No
Don't
way,
do that.
never. Nobody would ever say that, Matt. No.
Oh, yes.
No.
Yeah.
Look at this hair.
Yeah.
Look at this charming shirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody wants to get rid of you.
The hair just got out of the swimming pool, so it's
It
all
looks good. Better not be chlorinated.
So
Oh
it is.
Lord, don't even tell me that.
Yeah.
That's another interview.
Yeah.
Stay out of chlorine. Yeah.
You could sweep the floor with my
Poison.
head
Oh.
right now.
Wow.
So it's that. Anyway.
I think it looks good.
All right. Well, we've been sitting here with Abby Lodmer. It has been really fun. Abby's such a hoot. And
Hoot owl.
Yeah. And every time I see her, I leave very happy, and I hope you're going to do the same. So, Abby, do you have any parting words? Do you want to try to speak to any authors out there that might want to use you?
Oh my gosh, please. I want to say that follow your dreams and visions, because you wouldn't have been given an idea for a book or a story if you weren't meant to bring it out. I just want to encourage everybody to really follow that voice inside and do it, and start somewhere. You could start by bullet points. You could start by one sentence. Just start somewhere. And if you need to reach out to me to help you get started, I can ask you poignant questions that'll help you in the starting, middle, end, any part of the process. I would love to work with you if you have a vision and a dream that you want to bring out, and I look forward to creating that relationship with you. It's always fun. It's always inspiring and fun. I can't wait to be your cheerleader on your book project.
All right. Well, thank you for that so much, Abby. So
Thank you, Matt.
for Abby Lodmer, and it's abbylodmer.com.
AbbyLodmer.com.
Okay, and you're on
Easy.
Facebook and
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can search me on any search engine. A lot of things will come up. Some of them questionable, some of them kosher. I don't know. See what you find.
yeah,
Yeah.
bring out the goy in you.
Exactly.
All right. So for Abby
You're amazing.
and for Bailey, I'm Matthew Heines for Books in Hindsight. And remember what we always say, keep on reading.
Yes. Readers are leaders. I'm a Virgo.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm a perfectionist.
I don't even know it.
Yeah, you
I'm
do.
a Pisces.
Oh, I love Pisces.
Really?
Yeah, my mom's Pisces.
Okay. Or complete flakes.
Not at all. Look at you. Showing up promptly, waiting for me to put my mascara on.
Well, there's a thing about me that my attention is exactly proportional to the looks of the person involved. So
Thank you. Oh my God, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Maybe that'll be an insight. Maybe that'll be my lead-in.
Love it.
So,
I'll
all right,
take it.
let's do this now. Okay, and that's it.
Woo!
This has been Books in Hindsight with your host, Matthew Heines. Please join us for our next podcast and look for our archives on iTunes and go to thehindsight.com. That's HEINES site.com for great books by Matthew Heines and other great authors.